Obsession is a sickness that starts with envy and ends with admiration, but only after it's too late. Chosen one, that's exactly what's happening right now. They never cared when you were quiet, when you were doubted, when they thought you'd always stay behind. But the moment you broke through the walls, they tried to keep you trapped inside. The game changed. Suddenly, your name is heavy in their mouths. You are no longer invisible, you are unforgettable. Think of it like this: a fire ignored is harmless, but when it grows into a wildfire, it consumes everything around it. That's what you've become to them, a blaze they can't put out. And here's a fact the universe never fails to prove. Humans become obsessed with what they can't control. Psychologists have found that when someone challenges another person's sense of certainty, it sticks in their mind like a thorn. The more they try to ignore it, the deeper it presses in. That's you, chosen one. You're the thorn they can't pull out, the wildfire they can't contain. And thank you, chosen one. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe button to help spread this message to more souls. It's the responsibility of all of us to spread the light. Thank you for being part of this mission. You are part of a force. Now let's come back to it. Why are they obsessed? Why are they glued to your every move, dissecting every step, whispering your name in circles they once excluded you from? Because they underestimated you. They painted you as a background character, and now you've become the headline. You're not just living, you're living proof that their opinions meant nothing, and that burns them more than anything. Have you ever noticed how obsession always starts with disbelief? At first, they mocked your ambitions. They rolled their eyes, dismissed your dreams, laughed behind closed doors. But when those same impossible dreams started taking shape in front of their eyes, they had no choice but to keep watching. Imagine someone betting against you in a race, bragging about your failure, and then being forced to stand in the crowd as you cross the finish line first. That's why they can't stop staring. You flipped the ending of their story. Here's another truth that's hard to swallow for them. Success triggers fixation. Studies show that people remember failures less than victories. Why? Because victories disrupt the narrative of the doubter. You didn't just win, you destroyed their entire script. And that's why now you live rent-free in their heads. They don't just wonder what you did, they're replaying it, rewinding it, analyzing every step like detectives with no answers. But their obsession isn't admiration. It's wrapped in envy, tied with denial, and fueled by frustration. You've become the unsolvable riddle in their life, the one puzzle piece they can't place, no matter how hard they try. They wanted you small so they could feel big. They wanted you quiet so they could feel loud. Instead, you chose to grow, and now your very existence makes them feel incomplete. Chosen one, understand this. Obsession is just attention they never meant to give you. They hate that you don't need them, yet they need your story to make sense of their own failures. They'll copy your moves, mimic your style, even echo your words. But no matter how close they get, they can never touch the core of what makes you different. You're not just winning, you're winning in silence, and that silence screams louder than anything they've ever tried to shout at you. They're losing sleep over questions they'll never ask you directly. How did you rise when everything was against you? How did you build without their support? How did you manage to stay standing when they swore you'd fall? These questions gnaw at them because deep down they know the answer. They didn't stop you. And that's what they can't forgive themselves for. Let's paint another picture. Imagine a magician pulling off an illusion so perfect that even the skeptics can't explain it. That's you. To them, your life looks like one impossible trick after another. But here's the twist. They think it's magic, when in reality it's just persistence, discipline, and the universe rewarding you for not quitting. They'll never admit it, but your so-called mystery is their exposed weakness. This obsession they carry is a mirror, chosen one. They're not really staring at you, they're staring at what they lack. You reflect back everything they refused to work for, every opportunity they wasted, every excuse they clung to. That's why they can't get enough of you. You're not just proof that it can be done, you're proof that they chose not to do it. And here's where it gets even more brutal. The more they obsess, the more they fuel your momentum. Attention is energy. Even negative attention is still energy being poured your way. While they gossip, you grow. While they debate your every move, you make the next one. While they waste time dissecting your life, you live it. And that, chosen one, is why their obsession will only make your success louder. So remember this, obsession is never about you being ordinary. Ordinary doesn't get remembered. Obsession is proof that you've stepped into extraordinary territory. You've crossed a line they can't cross, and now they're stuck on the outside, watching. Let them talk, let them wonder, let them spin themselves in circles trying to crack your code. The truth is simple. They'll never solve you because you weren't meant to be solved. You were meant to be seen, felt, and remembered. Chosen one, now they're obsessed with who you are and how you did it. They can't get enough, no matter how hard they pretend otherwise. And the more they try to understand, the more lost they become in the mystery of you. And listen closely, chosen one. Thank you for being here, because this message was made for you. What's coming next will hit even harder, and you don't want to miss a single word. If you're ready to claim the truth about why they can't stop thinking about you, drop a comment below with the number 111 so I know you feel this energy too. And if you'd like to bless the team behind this message with a super thanks, know that every bit of support, whether it's small or big, keeps this mission alive and pushes it further. You're not just a listener, you're part of a movement that's shaking the silence and turning whispers into thunder. So hold on, because we're about to dive step by step into why their obsession is only growing stronger. And believe me, if you're a true chosen one, you'll feel the pull to stay until the very end. Let's get into it. Number 1. Rule breakers become legends. Rule followers become obsessed. Obsession is born the moment they realize you shattered the very cage they still call home. Chosen one, that's the gut punch they can't recover from. You didn't just play the game differently, you burned the entire playbook they worshipped. While they bowed down to the system, hoping approval would one day set them free, you spat in the face of their rules and wrote your own story. And that's why they can't get enough of you. You've become their walking nightmare, a daily reminder that the world they built their identity around was nothing but a trap. Think about it. They were told, play it safe, stay in line, don't ask questions, wait your turn. They swallowed those lies whole. They gave up their fire just to survive in someone else's cage. But you broke every chain they clung to. You said no to their authority, no to their scripts, no to their weak version of success. And the result? You thrived. You rose higher than they ever dreamed possible. That's why they're obsessed. You're proof that they wasted years obeying rules that never had power to begin with. Here's a fact that cuts even deeper. History never remembers the rule followers, only the rule breakers. Who do we talk about? The ones who dared to say, no, I'll do it my way. Those who rewrote culture, art, business and power by stepping outside of boundaries. The crowd only claps after the rebel has won, and that's what burns them most. They mocked you when you stepped out of line, but now they watch with envy as the world claps for you. They were certain your defiance would destroy you. Instead, it destroyed their illusion. They're confused, chosen one. They ask themselves, how did you do it? How did you succeed when you didn't play the game the way we were told to? And the answer gnaws at them. You didn't wait for permission. You didn't beg for validation. You didn't sit in the back row hoping to be noticed. You took center stage and forced the world to notice. That's what makes you dangerous in their eyes. You remind them of everything they could have been if they weren't so scared of breaking the mold. Picture it like this. They spent their entire life learning how to color inside the lines, carefully staying within boundaries that were handed to them. Meanwhile, you grabbed the paintbrush, splattered colors across the canvas, and turned it into art. Now they stand frozen, staring at your masterpiece, realizing their careful little sketches never mattered. You didn't just succeed. You made their obedience look pathetic, and nothing hurts them more than that. Here's the bitter truth. The rules they followed weren't designed for freedom. They were designed for control. Stay in line. Do what you're told. Follow the script. These were chains disguised as guidance. They thought they were climbing a ladder, but it was really a hamster wheel. You saw it for what it was. You stepped off. You built your own ladder out of nothing, and the universe rewarded you with growth they can't comprehend. Now they obsess. They replay your every move, hoping to decode the secret. They whisper about you behind closed doors, dissecting every decision. But the secret isn't complicated. It's brutal in its simplicity. You had the courage they never did. That's it. No magic formula, no shortcut. Just courage, and that's the one thing they can't copy. And ask yourself, chosen one, how could they not be obsessed? Imagine living your whole life by a rule book, only to watch someone tear it apart and win without it. It crushes the ego. It makes them question every choice, every sacrifice, every safe move they ever made. And instead of admitting the truth, that they wasted their freedom, they turn their confusion into obsession. They want to believe you got lucky. They want to believe you cheated. Because if they admit the truth, they'd have to face their own cowardice. Here's another metaphor for you. They're like soldiers who never questioned their orders. They spent years marching in formation, believing obedience was honor. Then you show up, refusing to salute, refusing to march, and you win the war anyway. How could they not be enraged? How could they not obsess? You didn't just break the rules, you proved the rules were never real in the first place. That's why your existence feels like a slap in their face. You didn't just rise, you exposed the lie they built their lives on. You forced them to confront the fact that they chose comfort over courage. And now, every time they see you shine, every time they hear your name, every time your presence is mentioned, it burns them from the inside, because they see the ghost of what they could have been. But let's not sugarcoat it, chosen one. Their obsession is not admiration. It's envy wrapped in frustration, tied up with shame. They study you like a problem they can't solve, but the more they look, the more they realize the answer has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. They're not angry because you broke the rules. They're angry because they never dared to. Here's where you win even more. While they waste time obsessing, you keep moving. You don't look back. You don't explain yourself. You don't shrink for their comfort. Every new move you make is another reminder that you're untouchable. That's what keeps them hooked. You're always 2 steps ahead, playing a game they never even knew existed. So yes, chosen one, you broke the rules they blindly followed. You shattered their illusions, and now they can't stop staring at the pieces. That's why they're obsessed with who you are and how you did it. You didn't just succeed. You became the living proof that their obedience was nothing but wasted time. And that's a truth too painful for them to ignore. And here's the final gut punch they'll never recover from. Rules may keep you safe, but they'll never make you unforgettable. Obsession is the tax they pay for mocking you when you chose freedom, and the longer you shine, the longer they'll stay trapped, staring at the rule book that failed them, while you live a life they'll never touch. Number 2, you made the impossible look like breathing. Nothing stings worse than watching someone turn your greatest excuses into their warm-up exercise. Chosen one, that's the dagger twisting in their chest. You didn't just achieve what they thought was impossible. You made it look natural, like it was second nature, like it was as simple as taking a breath. That's why they're obsessed. They're sitting in the same old place, clinging to the same old reasons, while you turned every too hard into already done. But let's set the record straight. It wasn't easy. It wasn't handed to you. Behind every step they call effortless was a battlefield of sleepless nights, sacrifices, and heavy choices. They didn't see you carrying the weight, they only see you standing tall at the finish line. And here's the painful truth they choke on. They thought the mountain was unclimbable, but you climbed it and built a home at the top. That image will haunt them forever. Effortless is only what discipline looks like to the lazy. That's another truth they can't digest. Imagine a student skipping years of class and then watching another walk across the stage to graduate. To them, it feels unfair, impossible, unreal. But the difference isn't luck, it's commitment. That's you. You committed to the grind they avoided, and when the results showed up, you didn't wave flags or demand applause. You just let the universe expose the truth. Their excuses were lies. And ask yourself this, chosen one, how could they not obsess? When you make the impossible look like breathing, it challenges every excuse they've ever made to themselves. I don't have time. I don't have the connections. It's too risky. Every excuse burns to ashes when they see you, because you lived through the same storms and still came out shining. You didn't need validation. You didn't need applause. You didn't need permission. And that's what terrifies them. You proved that their biggest obstacles were only illusions. Imagine this. They were drowning in a pool, flailing, screaming, swearing the water was too strong. Meanwhile, you dove into the same pool and swam across like it was nothing. Can you blame them for staring? Can you blame them for obsessing? They hate you for making what nearly drowned them look like a calm swim. Here's another metaphor. Think of a magician who practices for years in the dark. To the crowd, the trick looks like impossible sorcery. To the magician, it's just muscle memory. That's you. They see the trick, the effortless magic. What they don't see are the years of cuts, bruises, and practice behind the curtain. Their minds can't compute it, so they label it unfair, mysterious, undeserved. That's why they can't let you go. You've become their unanswered riddle. Your silence is the loudest applause you'll ever need. That's the part that makes their obsession unbearable. You never shouted about your grind. You never paraded your hardships. You let your results do the talking. That quiet confidence eats at them because they've been conditioned to scream, to beg, to prove themselves just to feel noticed. You never begged, you just became undeniable, and now their noise sounds hollow next to your silence. They wonder, how can someone move like this without asking for help? How can they rise without needing our validation? How can they look so calm when we're sweating in the same struggle? The answer is simple, but it's one they'll never want to hear. You stopped waiting, you stopped doubting, you chose to act. Here's a fact. Studies show people are most jealous when success seems out of reach and out of explanation. If they could point to luck, money, or connections, they could soothe themselves. But with you, they can't. You gave them no excuses to hide behind. Your rise looks like pure inevitability, and that's why they can't stop replaying your story. They're searching for cracks that don't exist. Imagine another scene. They're running on a treadmill, sweating, gasping, going nowhere. You step off, open the door, and walk straight into the world outside, while they stayed trapped in the illusion of progress. You found the real path forward. Now they obsess over you because you remind them of how long they've been stuck in place. And let's not pretend they admire you. No, admiration would mean admitting they respect you. What they feel is envy wrapped in confusion. They can't decide whether to call you lucky, sneaky, or blessed. So instead, they stay glued to your every move, hoping one day they'll figure it out. But obsession isn't admiration. It's frustration turned into fixation. Impossible doesn't mean it can't be done. It only means they won't do it. That's the line they can't swallow. Your life screams it at them every day. And while they debate, you act. While they gossip, you move. While they hesitate, you conquer. That's why you're unforgettable to them. You're a mirror showing them everything they failed to become. The cruel part for them is this. The harder they try to dismiss your success, the deeper it cuts. They'll tell themselves it was luck. They'll whisper that you cheated. But every time they repeat those lies, they feel the sting of knowing you actually earned it. And that sting turns into obsession. They'll scroll through your life, analyze your choices, and wonder how you made it look so easy when their lives feel like heavy chains. But chosen one, remember this: your calm power is their chaos. Your silence is their storm. The more effortless you appear, the louder their doubts become. You don't need to lift a finger. They're tearing themselves apart, trying to decode you. And the beauty is, you don't even care. You're too busy living. Imagine one last picture, a bird soaring across the sky, wings wide, gliding with no visible effort. Below, people stand, necks craned, frustrated. They're flapping their arms wildly, trying to imitate, but they never leave the ground. That's why they're obsessed. You remind them that they were born to fly, but chose to crawl. So yes, you made the impossible look effortless. You became the breathing proof that their excuses were nothing but illusions. And now their obsession with you will never end, because you didn't just achieve the impossible, you made it look like the easiest thing in the world. Number 3, your rise shattered their foolish predictions. They wrote your ending before your story began, and now they choke on every wrong word. Chosen one, that's the knife twisting in their ego. They thought they had you figured out. They labeled you weak, average, incapable. Some even laughed at the idea of your success. But your growth didn't just prove them wrong, it humiliated them. Every step you've taken forward is like a mirror held up to their arrogance, showing them how blind they truly were. Here's the sting they can't shake. You didn't need their approval. They thought their opinions had power over your destiny. They believed their judgments were law, but you went ahead and grew without their permission, without their validation, without even acknowledging their existence. And now, every victory you claim feels like their personal defeat. Imagine betting your entire reputation on a horse losing, only to watch that horse sprint past the finish line first. That's how they feel when they hear your name. What hurts the enemy most is not your success. It's their failure to kill your belief. That's a fact. They doubted you, not because you weren't capable, but because they feared the possibility that you were. If the person they mocked could rise, then their whole system of judgment collapses. Their authority means nothing. Their words mean nothing. That's why your growth eats at them. They're not just wrong, they're irrelevant. Picture it. They stood in the crowd, booing at the start of your race. But when the finish line came, you weren't just running, you were flying. they're still standing there, mouths open, trying to figure out how the person they dismissed just lapped them without breaking a sweat. Now they obsess, replaying your story, searching for a crack in the timeline, anything to explain away their own failure to see your worth. And here's the brutal truth, chosen one. Their predictions were never about you. They were about themselves. They judged you through the lens of their own fear, their own limits, their own wasted potential. And when you grew beyond that, you forced them to confront something they can't stand, the fact that they've been living small. So yes, your growth proved their predictions wrong, and now every time they see you shine, it's not just a reminder of your strength, it's a reminder of their weakness. That's why they can't stop obsessing over you. You became the evidence that their judgment was worthless, and nothing cuts deeper than that. Number 4, you thrived, while their approval turned to dust. They thought your future lived in their pockets. Now they can't stand that you never reached inside. Chosen one, that's the blow that keeps them awake at night. They crowned themselves as gatekeepers, convinced that you'd kneel for their blessing. They believed success was theirs to grant, like they were holding golden keys you had to beg for, but you didn't even glance at their gates. You walked straight past them, built your own door, and stepped into a future they swore you could never touch. Imagine their shock. They set up walls and rules, thinking they'd trap you, but instead of pounding on their locked doors, you went around, carved your own path, and made their authority look laughable. That's what haunts them. You thrived without bowing, without kissing rings, without letting them stamp your worth with their fragile approval. Your empire stands as living proof that their power was nothing but smoke. Here's a brutal fact. Systems built on ego always collapse when faced with independence. They underestimated you because they thought control was the only currency. But your rise ripped that illusion apart. Every success you claim is a headline screaming that their permission was irrelevant, and they can't stand being exposed as powerless. Ask yourself, chosen one, how could they not obsess? If they truly had the power they claimed, how did you grow without them? That question eats them alive. It's like a self-proclaimed king watching a peasant build a throne higher than his own. You became the contradiction they can't explain. So yes, you thrived without their approval, and now their obsession is the price they pay for ever believing you needed them. You didn't just win, you proved they were never the gatekeepers. You were, and that's a truth they'll never forgive you for. Number 5. You shattered the masks they called an identity. They spent their whole life pretending to be someone, and you ruined the performance just by being real. Chosen one, that's why they can't stop staring at you. For years, they stitched their identity out of borrowed beliefs, hollow expectations, and fragile masks. They thought the roles they played would protect them, but then you walked in, authentic, unapologetic, unshaken, and suddenly their costume looked ridiculous. Imagine sitting in a room full of people wearing masks, all nodding in agreement that this is normal. Then someone walks in without one. That's you. Your authenticity isn't just different, it exposes the lie in theirs. Every ounce of confidence you carry is like a spotlight on their insecurities. Every choice you make for yourself reminds them of the risks they never dared to take. Here's the sting they can't admit. Watching you is like staring into a mirror that reflects everything they buried, dreams they abandoned, chances they avoided, truths they denied. You're not just living, you're living proof of what they could have been if they weren't afraid. And that's unbearable. So yes, they obsess. not just over who you are, but over the holes in their own identity that your existence forces them to confront. You didn't just challenge their masks, you ripped them off. And now, every time they see you, they're reminded that authenticity always exposes imitation. Number 6. You became the storm they can't predict or touch. They built their safety in predicting others, but you're the thunder that never strikes the same place twice. Chosen one, that's why they're losing their grip. They need patterns, routines, people who can be boxed in and controlled. But you refuse every box they've tried to shove you into. Just when they think they've mapped out your next move, you pivot and leave them choking on dust. Imagine a chess master who's memorized every opening in the book, then sits across from a player who flips the board and still wins. That's you. They thought they'd figured out your story, but you've become a puzzle that reshapes itself every time they get close to solving it. And that unpredictability drives them mad, because control is the only language they understand. But what cuts deepest is that you're unreachable. They can't bribe you with approval, can't cage you with judgment, can't drag you into games you refuse to play. You're untouchable, like trying to grab smoke with bare hands. And the more they chase, the more elusive you become. So yes, they obsess, because you've proven the truth they can't stand. Real power doesn't come from control, it comes from being uncontainable. And you, chosen one, are the storm they'll never tame. Number 7. Your resilience turned their doubts into ashes. They prayed for your failure like rain, but every drop only watered your roots. Chosen one, that's the wound they can't heal. They've seen you stumble, and they thought it was over. Some even smiled when you fell, waiting for the universe to bury you under your own mistakes. But every single time, you rose again, taller, stronger, sharper. And that's why they're obsessed. You've shown them something they can't comprehend. You're unbreakable. Imagine this, someone watching a glass fall, convinced it will shatter, only to see it bounce back as steel. That's you. They expected your storms to drown you, but instead they forged you. Every setback became your training ground, every scar a medal, every defeat a lesson. That's why your resilience terrifies them, because it exposes how fragile they are in comparison. Here's the truth. They avoid risk because they fear loss. They think safety is strength. But you've proven the opposite. Real strength is born in fire, and every time you stepped into the flames, you came out forged, not broken. Your resilience mocks their weakness, and that's why they can't look away. So yes, chosen one, they obsess because you've proven a truth they spend their lives hiding from. Strength doesn't come from comfort, it comes from surviving the storm, and you are the storm they could never endure. Number 8. Your success exposed their comfortable mediocrity. They mocked your ambition until it worked. Now every victory of yours is their private humiliation. Chosen one, that's why they can't take their eyes off you. Your rise didn't just elevate you, it dragged their mediocrity into the light. Every milestone you reach forces them to remember the chances they never took, the risks they avoided, the dreams they let rot on the shelf. And instead of owning that truth, they project their bitterness onto you like a shadow they can't shake. Imagine this. 2 people standing at the edge of a cliff. One jumps, terrified but determined, and discovers wings on the way down. The other stays frozen, convincing themselves the fall would kill them. Years later, they look up and see you soaring above them. That's the sting. They realize they were never trapped, only scared. Here's a fact. People don't hate success, they hate the reflection it forces on their own failures. Your courage didn't just inspire, it exposed their cowardice. You didn't play it safe, and now safety looks like a cage in comparison to your freedom. That's why they obsess, Chosen One. Every move you make is a reminder of the life they'll never touch, because when the moment came to leap, they chose the comfort of standing still. Number 9. You built gold from nothing while they chased shadows. They copied each other into oblivion, but you created something they can't even name. Chosen One, that's the dagger twisting in their pride. While they ran in circles chasing trends, recycling the same stale ideas, you carved something out of thin air, something original, something alive, something the world didn't even know it was starving for until you brought it forward. And that's why they can't stop staring. You didn't just succeed, you changed the game. Imagine a crowd of painters all tracing the same picture, line by line, afraid to mess up. Then you walk in, throw away the stencil, and paint a masterpiece that silences the room. That's you. Their safe imitation looks pathetic next to your originality. You force them to realize they've been living off scraps while you were baking the bread. Here's the truth. Innovation always exposes imitation. Your creativity is proof they lacked imagination. That's why they obsess. They lie awake at night, replaying the same question. How did they see what we couldn't? And the answer eats at them. It's not luck, it's vision. You saw value where they saw nothing. You built gold where they only saw dirt. And that, Chosen One, is why you live rent-free in their minds. Number 10. You turned your scars into weapons. They can't carry. They thought pain would bury you, but you sharpened it into the blade that cut you free. Chosen One, that's the reality they can't stomach. They expected your struggles to break you, to cage you, to define you as weak. They wanted to see you stuck in misery, dragging your wounds like chains. But instead, you flipped their expectations. You took the very pain meant to destroy you and transformed it into the raw power that carried you higher. That's why they can't stop obsessing, because you did what they never dared to do. You mastered your suffering. Think of it this way. Two people go through the same fire. One comes out burned, scarred, and bitter, cursing the flames forever. The other walks out holding the fire itself, using it to light their way forward. That's you. You didn't crawl from the ashes. You rose with the flames still in your hands. Every scar on you became a medal, proof that you could not be destroyed, no matter how hard life tried. Here's the fact that stings them most. Pain reveals who people really are. Most let it define them. They turn into victims, replaying the same story of loss, rejection, and failure until it becomes their identity. But you rewrote the script. Your scars don't define you, they refine you. You turned pain into momentum, setbacks into stepping stones, and heartbreak into hunger. And that's a language they'll never understand, because they chose to stay small. And don't think for a second they don't ask themselves the same question over and over. Why did pain destroy me, but not them? That's what keeps them restless at night. They look at you and realize they surrendered while you fought. They see your rise and know that the difference wasn't luck, it was resilience. You refused to let suffering cage you. Instead, you turned it into a weapon, and now you cut through life with an edge they can't dull. So yes, Chosen One, you didn't let pain define you, you defined it. You forced pain to serve you instead of enslave you. And now, every time they see your strength, they're forced to face their own weakness. That's why they'll never stop obsessing, because your scars became your crown, and theirs became excuses. Number 11. Your success turned into their daily defeat. They wanted your failure to be their victory. Now every win of yours is the reminder that they lost the war. Chosen one, that's the wound they can't bandage. Your success doesn't just stand as a triumph for you. It feels like a direct attack on them. Why? Because they invested in your downfall. They tried to block you, discredit you, whisper your name in dark corners, and even sabotage your path. But every stone they threw became part of the foundation you built, and that truth eats them alive. Imagine this. Two fighters step into a ring. One spends all their energy trying to trip the other, confident that the fall will guarantee their win. But the fighter who keeps getting knocked down doesn't just stand back up. They learn, adapt, and come back swinging harder each time. That's you. And now, every punch you land feels like a bruise on their own ego. Your victory is their defeat because their entire strategy was built on you staying down. Here's the fact. People who bet against you secretly tie their identity to your failure. They feel taller when you stumble, but when you rise, the mirror flips and they see how small they really are. That's why your success feels so personal to them. It's not just your story, it rewrites theirs. They told themselves you'd never make it. Now, every milestone you hit is proof that their judgment was worthless. And ask yourself this: how could they not obsess when your life is living evidence that their efforts failed? Every time your name gets mentioned, every achievement that shines, it stabs at their pride. Because in their mind, your growth equals their defeat. You weren't supposed to rise higher. You weren't supposed to prove them wrong, but you did, and you keep doing it. So yes, chosen one, your success feels personal to them because it is. To them, you're not just winning, you're dismantling their entire narrative, and that's why they can't let go, can't look away, can't stop obsessing. Your victories don't just crown you, they expose their losses again and again until obsession is the only thing they have left. Number 12. Your silence became the echo they can't escape. They scream your name in the chaos, but your silence drowns them louder than thunder. Chosen one, that's what cuts them deepest. In a world where people trade validation like currency, where gossip is their oxygen and drama is their drug, you chose silence. You refused to feed their games. You didn't argue, you didn't explain, you didn't fight for their approval, and that decision robbed them of the chaos they depend on. Imagine this, a room full of people shouting, desperate to be heard, and then one person simply walks out without a word. Who do they all notice? The one who left. That's you. Your silence unsettles them because it strips them of control. They wanted you to engage, to defend yourself, to fight in their mud, but you starved them. And nothing drives an enemy crazier than realizing they can't drag you into their mess. Here's the fact. They mistake noise for power, but noise is just desperation disguised as confidence. Your silence, on the other hand, is real authority. It forces them to sit with themselves, to hear their own insecurities echo back in the void you left. That's why they obsess. The less you give, the more they crave. The more they gossip, the more desperate they look. And ask yourself, chosen one, why do they talk about you so much while you say nothing about them? Because deep down, they know silence is strength. They know mystery is magnetic. You've turned yourself into a riddle they can't solve, and their noise only proves it. Every rumor, every whisper, every desperate attempt to define you is really just proof of their obsession. So yes, your silence speaks louder than their noise. Every time you refuse to explain, you remind them that their words don't touch you. Every time you stay still, you show them they're chasing shadows. And that's why they'll never stop obsessing, because your quiet confidence exposes their loud weakness, and it echoes longer than any noise they'll ever make. Number 13. You became what they only pretended to be. They wore the mask of greatness. You became the real thing. Chosen one, that's the wound they can't stop scratching. For years, they've lived as actors on a stage, playing roles of strength, confidence, and success, hoping no one would ever notice the cracks beneath their costumes. They built entire identities on borrowed words and empty appearances. But then you showed up, authentic, unpolished, unapologetic, and the spotlight shifted. Suddenly their masks looked cheap, their act exposed, their illusions shattered. Imagine a room full of people holding fake trophies, smiling proudly for the cameras until someone walks in carrying the real one. That's you. They pretended to embody greatness, but when your presence entered the scene, their performance collapsed. Because no matter how polished their masks, realness always outshines imitation. Your existence made their pretending impossible to maintain, and that truth burns them every time your name comes up. Here's the fact that crushes them. Faking confidence works until the genuine article arrives. They thought their loud voices, their staged success, their curated images would make them untouchable, but your quiet authenticity tore through all of it. You didn't have to announce yourself, you simply lived it, and the contrast exposed their lies without you saying a word. And ask yourself, chosen one, how could they not obsess? If their entire identity was built on illusion, then you are the living proof that they wasted years pretending instead of becoming. Every time you succeed, every time you rise, every time your presence demands respect, it forces them to realize they never had it to begin with. They only acted while you became. So yes, they're obsessed, because you embody what they spent their lives faking. You became what they only pretended to be, and no mask in the world can hide the shame that truth brings. That's why they whisper, why they speculate, why they can't look away, because you are the reality they'll never reach, the standard they can't fake their way into, and the proof that authenticity always wins. Number 14. You stole the crown they thought was reserved for them. They thought the crown was theirs until you walked in wearing it. Chosen one, that's the poison burning in their veins. For so long, they convinced themselves that recognition, respect, and opportunities belong to them by default. They thought their connections, their status, or simply their arrogance made them heirs to the throne. But you destroyed that illusion the moment you stopped waiting. You didn't beg, you didn't ask. You took what was always meant for you, and in doing so, you tore their sense of entitlement to shreds. Imagine a table full of people guarding an empty chair, insisting it's theirs. Then one day, you walk in, pull the chair out, and sit with full confidence. That's you. They thought the spotlight would always shine on them. But when you stepped into it, you didn't just fit, you owned it. And now, every time you rise higher, it feels to them like robbery. Not because you stole anything, but because their pride can't accept the truth. The universe was never saving that crown for them. Here's the fact: they mistake assumption for ownership. They believed that by thinking something belonged to them, it did. But entitlement doesn't build empires. Work does, resilience does, vision does, and you proved it. You earned everything they thought would simply fall into their laps. That's why your victories feel personal to them, why your success stings like betrayal, because your rise is the reminder that nothing in this world is promised, not even to those who act like they deserve it. And ask yourself, chosen one, why do they obsess so much over your wins? Because deep down, they know every crown you wear is one they thought would rest on their own head. Every milestone you reach exposes their wasted chances. Every time you succeed, it screams the truth they can't bear. It was never theirs. So yes, they're obsessed. You didn't just step into the spotlight, you shattered their illusion that the spotlight belonged to them. You claimed what they were too arrogant, too lazy, or too fearful to earn. And that's why they'll never stop watching, because you are living proof that the crown belongs to the one who dares to wear it, not the one who assumes it's already theirs. Number 15. You outgrew the cage they built to contain you. They built walls to contain you, but you grew roots that cracked the foundation. Chosen one, that's the sight that torments them every time your name comes up. They thought they could box you in, keep you small, dismiss your potential, and convince the world that you'd never rise beyond the limits they placed on you. But instead of suffocating in their cage, you expanded. You stretched beyond every boundary, cracked through the concrete of their control, and proved that no prison built on lies and doubt could ever hold you. Imagine planting a seed in a tiny pot, convinced it would only grow so far. Then one day, that seed bursts through the clay, shattering it into pieces, reaching toward the sun. That's you. They underestimated your roots, your growth, your strength. They thought their walls would define you, but instead, you used those very walls as leverage to grow stronger. And now, the ruins of their cage stand as a monument to their failure to contain you. Here's the fact they choke on. People who try to limit others are only exposing their own limits. They wanted you trapped because they themselves were trapped. They wanted you small because they lacked the courage to grow. But you refused to shrink. You refused to stay boxed in. And that's why your freedom feels like betrayal to them, because it exposes how willingly they accepted their own cage. And ask yourself, chosen one, why are they so obsessed with you now? Because every time they see you free, they're reminded that they stayed behind. You didn't just escape their walls, you outgrew them completely. You became proof that their limits were never real. So yes, they obsess. They can't ignore the fact that the cage they built to contain you now looks like rubble beneath your feet. You're out in the open, thriving, untouchable, and they're still sitting inside their self-made prison, staring at the cracks you left behind. That's why they'll never stop watching, because your freedom is the evidence of their captivity. And listen, chosen one, now you see the truth. Every move you've made, every rise you've claimed, has left them obsessed, confused, and powerless to ignore you. Their noise, their bitterness, their obsession, it all proves your strength. And if this message hit home, make sure you press the like button if you haven't already. And if you're still not part of our family, press that subscribe button right now. Together, we spread this light, this truth, and this unstoppable force even further. Stay strong, stay untouchable, because they'll never stop watching and you'll never stop rising.